Hi, I'm Zach Foster, Executive Director of the Mises-Mambí Institute of Cuba, and this is a special update for our donors and future donors. Many of you have generously given to directly fund libertarian activism and emergency relief in both Cuba and Venezuela. You've probably been wondering what the updates are on these incredible people, and you've probably been wondering exactly how we've been spending your money. Well, I'm very proud to be able to give you a full report on everything that the Institute has got going on right now. Let's take a look. Most of you are probably wondering how I got involved with libertarians in Cuba. Well, in February of 2017, 2 libertarians were attending the Mises Cuba book club in Havana. They were arrested by state security for reading the wrong books. They were sentenced in a kangaroo court and sent to a labor prison. Their names are Ubaldo Herrera Hernandez and Manuel Velázquez Licea. The dissident Nelson Rodriguez Chartran down in Havana got on the phone and he called a recent exile who was living in Miami. That man in Miami found me in a Spanish-speaking libertarian group on Facebook. I'm Mexican-American and so I speak Spanish. 6 weeks later, the LNC passed a resolution condemning the Cuban government's arrest of these activists and declaring solidarity with libertarians in Cuba. 17 months later, we have not only the Cuban Libertarian Party, but an auxiliary ANCAP organization, the Cuban Anarcho-Capitalist Movement, and the Institute, with libertarian minds in 6 provinces across Cuba. Not bad considering we started out as just a group of people in one house. You guys know, I have had several members of the American Libertarian Party meet with our Cuban libertarians while they themselves were on business in Cuba. We had them meet face to face in order to verify that everything was on the up and up and that these people are not Nigerian princes. And I'm very proud to report to you, they are not. They are exactly who they say they are. They're our people. Reason magazine published an article on the founding of the Cuban Libertarian Party. The Cuban Libertarians were also covered by InfoWars, by the Ludwig von Mises Institute in Auburn, and on the Tom Woods Show. Some of you have seen the videos we've put out online and now on our website, edited from mobile phone videos shot by Cuban libertarians as they chronicle daily life under the Castro regime. Recent videos have included footage of the Flight 937 crash in Havana, severe flooding across the country, underground flea markets and horse betting in Camagüey province, confrontations with state security agents, and visiting Janet Padron, secretary of the Cuban Libertarian Party, in prison, where she's there as a political prisoner. Now this is where it starts getting expensive really fast. Internet credit, in other words, keeping these people connected with the outside world, costs $21 a pop per person per refill. Then there's the phone credit. That's even more important to keep these people directly in contact with us and in contact with each other. Phone credit costs a minimum of $25 US, and it only gets them about 3.5 hours of talk time, which means it's about $50 per person to get them 7 to 8 hours of talk time per month. And that can get soaked up pretty quickly when you've got to organize with a whole bunch of other party members, when you've got to coordinate with other branches in other provinces, and when you've got to keep calling the United States or calling Mamela or I. Libertarian education is critical, which is why we've been financing the basic libertarian philosophy course, which by this point has fed free minds in Havana, Camagüey, Granma, and Holguin provinces across Cuba. Busing people to wherever the basic libertarian philosophy course is being taught costs money as well. It on average costs $10 per person per way for a way. In addition to chronicling activism and government abuse, the Cubans also take video of their meetings and their study sessions as proof of upholding their end of the deal. And in order to get books there, a lot of the books get held up by customs for political reasons. So we actually email them PDF files, send them the cash through Western Union, and then they download the PDF files, They go to the print shops with the cash, and they print out books at the local print shop on 8.5 by 11 paper, and that's how they don't have to worry about censorship in the post office or dealing with state security. Then there's emergency relief, which happens more often than not. Every time somebody has a medical emergency, or somebody gets sent to prison, or there's a natural disaster and the government ignores the dissidents for relief, we send cash payments through Western Union. We have sent money to the families of the 2 libertarians who are currently in prison in Cuba, Ubaldo Herrera and Yanet Padron, and we also sent money to the Camagüey Libertarian team after Hurricane Irma destroyed one of the walls and part of the roof of their house. And the government specifically did not evacuate them because they are dissidents, and when people were brought back to the island, the government skipped them over for relief, so we actually had to cover that. Our new website is a great portal and conduit not only for telling the world about our institute and about Cuba's libertarians, but even more importantly, for giving those dissidents a voice. Dissidents like Marisol Peña of the Cuban ANCAP movement. Her ex-husband left her for a Communist Party member who could buy him nice things, and ever since that, it's been absolutely personal with her. She was chomping at the minute to get involved with the libertarian movement. You can log on right now to read economics articles and editorials by libertarians living behind the Iron Curtain in Cuba and Venezuela. Some of you might ask, why Venezuela? Well, the reason is partially symbolic. To prop up his brand of Soviet socialism in Venezuela, Fidel Castro and his regime have also propped up the Chavez and Maduro regime with loans, special lopsided trade deals, and soldier enforcers. So while Venezuela is in a time of crisis, it only made sense to lend a hand to those libertarians. So the Mises-Mambí Institute helps Venezuela's libertarians in the name of Cuba's libertarians. Since we started working with the leaders of the libertarian movement of Venezuela, their LP, the movement has more than quadrupled in size. One of their superstars is Yomar Moreno, the national coordinator of the libertarian movement of Venezuela and a main organizer of Mises Institute Venezuela. Yomar is only 19, but he's more productive than most people I know in the United States. Speaking of Mises Venezuela, the Mises-Mambí Institute is proud to have resurrected them from the dead. They suffered a long period of inactivity due to the post-World War I Germany-style economic collapse and the fact that the people in charge of it had to find food. To the tune of $250 a month in grants, which we provide, the team at Mises Venezuela is paid to do libertarian work full-time. They have enough money to buy food on the black market, so they don't have to worry about that nonsense. And as you can see by this Mises Tuesday video, they are creating fresh content for people to learn about our ideas, and best of all, they have a budget for amazing monthly events like Beers and Ideas, which you see here, where they barbecue up a storm, they pour the beer on tap, and they talk to dozens of new faces about Austrian economics and libertarian political ideas for Venezuela. One of my favorite side projects to watch is Infolitics. Infolitics is a libertarian publication made by a team of Venezuelans that puts out 2 full-color political cartoons each week in English and in Spanish. Today, it's one of the most popular libertarian publications in the Spanish-speaking world. For $50 a month, we keep a small team of Venezuelan artists working while we also expand the body of existing libertarian art and literature for people in 2 language groups. The mastermind behind Infolitics is Luis Ojeda. Luis started off in politics in the libertarian movement, but today he is the state coordinator for Vente Venezuela for the state of Aragua. Vente Venezuela is one of 3 classical liberal parties in Venezuela's I Am Venezuela coalition. They got together so they could form a national ticket. Vente is currently the largest of the three classical liberal parties with several thousand members and one conservatarian sitting in the National Assembly. Luis is one of the Mises-Mambí Institute's writers. Now, the Foundation for Progress invited Luis to their upcoming conference in Santiago, Chile on August 2nd. Here's the challenge. It's either a 7-hour flight to Santiago or it's a 5-day bus ride. Busing him from the state of Aragua to the capital, Caracas, and then flying him round trip to Santiago will cost $900. There's just no getting around that. It's expensive to get out of Venezuela. The Foundation for Progress is paying for half the airfare, but we need an angel donor who's willing to cover the other half, and we need it by July 28th. Folks, I believe Luis Ojeda is a heavy hitter in the Venezuelan resistance, and I believe that he is worth investing in. So if you want to support that, you can get in touch with me. You can also read some of his work for yourself on the Institute's website. Another Venezuelan libertarian voice you'll be hearing a lot from in the next few weeks is María Oropeza. María is a lawyer, a longtime activist, a stalwart taxation is theft libertarian, and the national youth coordinator for Vente, Venezuela. She's also the Mises-Mambí Institute's main point of contact regarding the political prisoner Lorent Saleh, a self-identified libertarian who's been detained by the Chavez regime without a trial since 2014. Let's talk about the think tank side of things. In addition to having the basic libertarian philosophy course in Cuba and events like Beers and Ideas in Venezuela, and in addition to stockpiling articles by Cuban and Venezuelan libertarian writers, we are continuing to expand knowledge in the Austrian tradition. We've prepared a special flagship manuscript, an original Spanish translation from the yet untranslated 4th volume of Conceived in Liberty by Murray Rothbard. Chapters dealing with the guerrilla war waged by Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys against the Royal New York government, in which nobody died. Next, the book contains our translation of Rothbard's essay on the libertarianism of Mexico's Zapatista rebels. Written in March of 1994, it was one of the last things Rothbard wrote before he passed away. Then there's our essays on the nonviolent resistance of the Zapatista rebels since 1997 and the autonomous zones that they won for themselves. After that, there are insights on the nonviolent resistance methods of Gandhi and MLK. All these are things that the Cuban libertarians badly need to know if they're going to meaningfully resist against the Castro regime. Then at the end of 2018, we're taking all the Infolitics cartoons and publishing them in a beautiful, full-color coffee table book that's going to be available in Spanish and in English. We'll be in a position to publish these amazing books once our institute has attained 501c3 tax-exempt status. That's right, the institute is still legally just a grassroots organization. Now everything is on the up and up. Right now I'm registered as a sole proprietor, but I need to make that tax liability disappear this year. Also, we need to be a 501c3 so that we can get the resources that we need to get some real work done. Because we take this institute, this brand, and these projects working with these real human beings in Cuba and Venezuela very seriously, we are operating at a level worthy of a think tank, worthy of an aspiring corporation, worthy of the good name of Ludwig von Mises, and the name of the Mambí warriors who fought for Cuba's independence. In anticipation of becoming a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, we have assembled a board of directors, headed by myself as executive director. As far as my qualifications, I'm an Eagle Scout. I completed my bachelor's in political science by writing about how the Mexican drug war is actually civil war, and I wrote about that from a Rothbardian viewpoint. I am a former reserve soldier where I learned military journalism working in the public affairs office. That's how I got started as a writer. I wrote the upcoming biography of 2020 presidential candidate Adam Kokesh, and I'm also the author of the upcoming underdog campaign book, Black and Gold, which only about 100 libertarian activists in the United States have been given access to before I publish it next year. Secretary is Angela McArdle. She is also Secretary of the Libertarian Party of California. Marcos Lopez is a Cuban American and a state chair for Americans for Prosperity in Nevada. Maria Alexander Garcia, chairwoman of the Miami-Dade Libertarian Party. I met her when I gave a talk on the Cuban Libertarian Party in Little Havana last year, and I asked her to be on my board. Diego Rivera is a Cuban American, a former U.S. Army Ranger, and a field director for Americans for Prosperity. On our advisory council, we have Angelines Chamorro. She is very active with the Libertarian Party of Spain. And we have María Fiallo from Buenos Aires. She actually prefers to go by Mamela. That's the nickname we know her as. But these two ladies are absolutely heavy hitters. They've been working very closely with me from the very beginning, especially Mamela. Every single day we've been working together for freedom in Cuba. We even bug each other on vacation. This is not a joke. We work together every day. The advisory council also includes exiles living in the United States. And we're not going to disclose their identity because some of them still travel to Cuba and they still meet with our people. We have corporate bylaws signed by our secretary, waiting to be revised and amended as necessary at our first board of directors meeting. We have a laser-focused direct outreach strategy to get in touch with the media. We actually have over 100 journalists at over 80 different venues that we contact. And these range from obscure libertarian blogs and Cuban exile blogs to more mainstream venues like Telemundo, Univision, CNN en Español, Fox News Latino, Miami Herald, etc. That means we'll have already directly reached out to over 100 journalists who specifically care about Cuba with our new media advisory for this week before you even started watching this video. Now, if you'd like to see the media advisory for the week, and if you'd like to be aware of the things we think the media should be aware of, you can see the email for the link or check the video description for the direct link. I traveled to the 2018 Libertarian National Convention in New Orleans to raise awareness and support for the cause of freedom in Cuba and Venezuela. There, the Mises-Mambí Institute got endorsements from author and economist Tom Woods. Hey
everybody, it's Tom Woods. I want to urge you to help out the Mises-Mambí Institute. They are doing extremely important work for libertarianism in Cuba and Venezuela.
And author and economist Walter Block.
Because these two Mises Institutes, the one in Cuba and the one in Venezuela, are special.
I attended Freedom Fest in my town of Las Vegas to build relationships with some very important nonprofits, some powerful think tanks, and independent media outlets. I recorded words of support for our activist brothers in Cuba and Venezuela from Toe Bishop, director of the Ludwig von Mises Institute in Auburn, and from Governor Gary Johnson, 2016 Libertarian presidential candidate. As a matter of fact, Yomar down in Venezuela is a total fanboy for Gary Johnson. He was thrilled when he saw this endorsement. It was hilarious. I attended the Freedom Fest panel on Cuba, Venezuela, and North Korea's prospects for liberty, and I had the privilege of meeting Yeonmi Park, who escaped from North Korea and today works with Liberty in North Korea. We discussed what things we can do to help each other in our mutual goals. Miss Park and I did cook up something good, but that has to stay a secret for 6 to 8 months. Sorry, folks. In New Orleans, we got the LNC to pass a resolution condemning the Maduro regime for their crimes against their population and declaring solidarity with the libertarian movement of Venezuela. Very proud of that. We also forged some very important new partnerships with organizations at Freedom Fest. That's what I'm excited about. Several foundations with real money are ready to support us once we get our federal tax exempt status. There's the big kicker. It's been our major roadblock. The filing fee for that is $400, and we've actually raised it 3 times. But here's the problem. At every moment when we've had at least $400 in our Institute PayPal, we've had to make a decision. Are we going to try and make this last for several weeks or maybe even longer? Are we going to try and provide phone credit for all of the different activists who need it? Or are we going to try and get our T's crossed and our I's dotted as far as federal paperwork goes? See, back in the summer of 2017, when the Cuban Libertarian Party was barely a month old, we had no idea that this institute would become the think tank that it is today. We had no idea that we would be helping as many dissidents in Cuba and Venezuela, and that we would have as many projects in both countries as we do today. Our priorities have changed now that our activists have proven libertarianism has staying power behind the Iron Curtain. And that's why we need your help. It is due time for us to become a federal tax-exempt organization, but we have an ethical responsibility to maintain all our commitments to our activists. That means all the telecommunications infrastructures, subsidizing people's salaries. None of that can stop just because we want to get this tax-exempt organization. We need that status in order to move forward, but we also need to continue with our commitments to the people who depend on us. That's why we need your help. Ladies and gentlemen, we need you. The libertarians in Cuba and Venezuela need you. We cannot do this without you. Please give whatever you can to help keep us going and to help us get to the next step so we can get those big grants and get some real work done. Thank you very much for your support so far, and thank you so much for believing in the power of freedom in Cuba and Venezuela. Liberty will prevail behind the Iron Curtain.